is one of the few foundations working on nutrition, autonomy in the South, transformation, transition of the food and agriculture foundation. We spoke an hour about emotion and angriness, and now you feel a lot of emotion when you eat, and emotions when you watch and you see how the food system is working, the anxiety of some when it comes to food. Let's leave the world of emotion to look at our table, at our plates. We want to have sustainable food. Here we have 4 speakers that are positioned at different position of the supply chain. So we're going to be able to look at 360 degrees of the subject. We have 1.5 hours ahead. I present the different speakers. Why are we interested in transition towards a sustainable food? We're only a couple of days away from COP28, the United Nations Convention on climatic change, and we will certainly continue working about agriculture. Because even so we have a lot of food, we have a lot of discussion around sovereignty, food sovereignty, the system from the fork to the plate. It's responsible of part of the carbon emissions, and the farmers are creating emissions, but they are the first victims of those emissions. And therefore, it's important to contribute to finding solutions by stocking carbon and other practices in order to minder the problems. So get with me. I have 4 in person. Let's go along the food chain and begin with the plates. So on my left, Juliette Delannoy, you're in charge of Foodles. You're in charge of CSR at Foodles. You might have eaten the food in connected fridges or click and collect. It is a collective food industry, and you're going to explain later on what it means and what your challenges are. Then on my right, Béatrice Javary, you're CSR Director for Auchan Retail. There's a link and strong links between a distributors, and producers and consumers. And then, if we follow the chain, we have Sébastien ABIS, who is head of Club DEMETER. It is a club within the agricultural world. It's a think tank feeding entrepreneurs in France and abroad, different cooperatives, up to collective food industry. And then we come up to the producer, and beside the producer there's the banker who is following and coaching. He is Thierry LEBRUN, your director of the Transition Bank. You will explain to us what it means to all our listeners. Let's take the time, and we're going to speak about 4 subjects: geopolitics, sovereignty, then the supply chain, then consuming in a responsible manner, the challenges here in terms of production and food consumption, and then I will ask questions around levers and breaks in order to engage and to launch this sustainable transition. And at the end, how can we measure these efforts, which we all do, What are the indicators we use? How do we look for the impact? And then you will all have some time for questions and share your remarks. Right, let's begin straight away. Sébastien, ABIS. We know each other since some time. Sébastien, would you... We are friends since some time. You are working in France and in the world, but also internationally. Why do we need to speak about the resilience of food industry? Is it essential to speak about this in the actual geopolitical context with the war and the conflicts and aggressions in Ukraine, the impact of the climate change, a strong conflict in different parts of the world? Why do we need to do that, to speak about the resilience of food systems in Europe and internationally? And let me add, for others, please, short questions so that we can have enough time for everybody to discuss. Thank you, Mathieu. Good afternoon. Let me put 3 points. One, we have something that is continuous. All the babies born since this morning all need, like everybody and like 8 billion people on Earth, to bring calories and energies in their body. Otherwise, we cannot live, we cannot think, we cannot move around and breathe. So we live in a specific time where there have never been as many inhabitants as now. We will have another 2 billion inhabitants until 2050. So the food security, security of the human being, relies on food amount which we need to eat if everything goes well, thanks to the farmers, the fishers. So this is something that doesn't change. It's the same for everybody, the small babies, us here, and all people on the earth. Second, there's a big change. We cannot continue to nourish like before because there are more people and the same amount of resources, and because we request the guys who produce, to transform, who finance, who distribute, largely to decarbonate completely the lifestyle. And we request the consumers to be in a bigger responsibility. And clearly, it is our capacity tomorrow to understand that the price, the just price for the food, which is good for my health, is the price we need to pay for the health of the planet, and the price that is good for the producers, for those who nourish us, and that is good for the local areas. If it is not just on all dimensions, it's not the right price. And as transition has a cost, and is something that is not being said, the report from Thierry, we know what we need to do, we know what the challenges are, we have levers, we have solutions, we need to pay, and when you need to pay, you need everybody on board. So the food inflation is very good news today. It's difficult, socially speaking. It imposes new decision-making processes. However, it gives some value, it confers a value to what is vital. And the food tomorrow that would be too cheap doesn't make any sense, because there are many challenges today, because we have the transitions, and because we need to pay those who are in the first line to produce food. Thirdly, as Mathieu said, and he's right to remember us, that we need to take on this subject as a whole, integral, holistic. There is not a B planet. Europe in France, we cannot think around agronomy and climate without taking into account the fact that there are regions where there are other circumstances and where the needs are different. The time limits are different. The expectations are different. Therefore, we need to be aware and understand that on Earth, there is a lot of expectations from the politician, from the society, the companies, the finance sector. Strategically, everybody is very much mobilized because it is a remaining need. Any stakeholder, any person who want to be in the green finance and responsible finance look at food and agriculture because it's very concrete. However, it is very far away from some attitudes, ideological attitudes. From our side, from our French and European side, we are very comfortable. Let me underline this, because we need to think and to remember that along food questions, there is a lot of lack of equality and of equity across the world. We don't speak the same language because the need is not the same, and the capacity to change and to finance and to innovate. These are the 3 points I wanted to raise, and I believe strongly that we have to explain today, not to the agricultural world, because they know what they have to do, not to the stakeholders that are already working in the sector, because they know how complex it is to secure food and to secure health. It is a great collective adventure. There should be a solidarity chain, or there won't be any. The agricultural world is on your side to transition. But it means that the consumers, the citizens, the clients, the customers need to understand that we need to give a sense back. Food and the care for food is a subject we need to keep, not for the 1,000 first years of the baby or for the old person, the age, but for everybody. If you eat good food along your life, the longer and the better you will live. Okay, Sébastien, I'm sure this is going to provoke some questions, and we are going to see how it looks like for Auchan. But before we speak about with Auchan, let me ask Thierry LEBRUN. He works for the bank, Crédit Agricole. You please tell me what. Could you please react to what Sébastien said? We have the minister is called now the agriculture and the agricultural sovereignty, which is security. Before it was altermondialiste, and now we speak about sovereignty, and then we have the pressure to decarbonize our production modes. We are going to understand what Crédit Agricole does. Can a farmer do both, decarbonize and produce food? Thank you. The Transition Bank is leaving the social project of the group, the society project of the group. We all understood that the world today is not sustainable since 1972. We know this. And by thinking at what we ought to do as bankers, we try to classify a subject between what is important. Everything is important, obviously. What is critical, COVID, for instance, and the climate and biodiversity. Why is climate important? You only need to, on November 17th, for celebrated an historic moment. For the first time on the Earth, we had more than 2 degrees on global scale, and the global scientists tell us that we're going to be even ahead of increase of temperature. The CCCP tells us that the intertropical zone will be there's no way to live there. In Brazil, it is beyond 58 degrees. The tropical surface is a majority of land. What does it mean? Why biodiversity? Because if we think that we can live without vegetable and animal, it's not going to happen. We lost 70% of biodiversity, and this is not a photography. This is not stabilized. It is accelerating, and therefore, if the curve continues, then in 10, 15 years, it's going to be a real subject. But we will be afraid of the subject. And when we are a banker with the Crédit Agricole, we can think we need to take care of it, and therefore we decided strategically in our project, in a group, that we need to continue to subsidize decarbonation and for all stakeholders and achieve, we wrote, we need to achieve the transition of the agriculture and the food. It doesn't mean it is an obligation of means, it's an obligation of objective. We work with our clients, with our stakeholders in order to build coalition. What are we talking about? We're talking about something that is at the very heart of our DNA, which is the cooperation. We are cooperative with the first cooperative in the world, and in a system that is liberal and capitalistic with a high competition. It's free, and we think that the common, the climate, the soil, the living cannot be object of only the market laws. If this should be working, we would not talk about it today. So we need to think and coalesce. We need to adopt a more cooperative way of co-optimization of clients of climate change. And the first row is the agriculture. Let's talk about sovereignty. Sovereignty. What is sovereignty? For a country like France, it's the capacity of producing on the soil, and what we produce ensures and secures our sovereignty. And then we can import without creating interdependencies that are not bearable. Today, we can import 50% of our fruit and vegetables. 70% of the soil in France are dedicated to animal industry. Therefore, we specialized our farms, and we are rather sovereign. However, the question is, how can we move forward? What is the link between the sovereignty and the transition? It's very easy. If we consider that, as Sébastien said, the agriculture is a vector for climate change, because according to scientists, it's around 30% on the world level of the agriculture and the food supply chain, up to the consumers with the logistic, 30-35%. So we understand that we cannot only work on the decarbonization. That means a sobriety in terms of use of fossil energy. We need also to work on the nature. And aside, this is what we witness in the Pas-de-Calais region nearby. Just we have 100 farmers we accompany because they are flooded. We know and we see that the farmer is the first stakeholder to be very vulnerable to climate change, environmental risks. So we need to ensure the resilience of our production system and the long-lasting duration of our farmers. And for us as a bank, transition is a key precondition for food sovereignty. And I'm coming to the end. We cannot consider that the climate is the only subject. I've said it. the climate is the decarbonization are just key in order to avoid climate risks. The risks are there already, so we do have problems in the decarbonization. We have water pollution problems linked to biodiversity of soils, therefore of yield. So the transition today is first of all ensure the well-being of the farmers themselves. We need to think that 70% of farmers disappeared in the last 20 years. In the next 10 years, half of the farmers are going to retire. So we need to make sure and ensure that there's a young generation taking over and that there is actual activity of this profession and the co-benefits of the decarbonization, the environment, and biodiversity, and so on. Thank you very much, Thierry. We understood what your job consists, a very wide field, and a strong link between transition and decarbonization. We are talking at the French level. Sébastien spoke about the challenge in other countries. Our sovereignty, food sovereignty, is ensured. It's not the case in other regions, other countries who are more dependent from other countries to eat. And they are therefore more vulnerable to the lack of biodiversity and climate change risk at the other side of the Mediterranean, in Tunisia, Egypt, and other Middle East countries. This dependency situation is very strong. Thierry, you spoke about the impact, climate impact, and the consumption way we consume and we eat. I would like to now to say with Juliette and Beatrice how we think and reflect how we eat. 33% of the emissions come from the land use and the food system, from our practice, agriculture, and our food practice. A couple of weeks ago, the UN edited a report about the hidden cost of food. There are $10 trillion of additional costs. We don't pay everything. We don't pay all the costs around health, undernutrition or overnutrition, obesity. And with Juliette Delannoy, she's going to present to us what she is doing at Foodles. What do you do? How do you measure the impact of collective kitchen? There's a big levers in terms of transition. We're going to speak about waste. You have connected fridges. Some of us know them. How do you measure the environmental impact and what are the commitment you took on? You're probably part of B Corp, as far as I know, because it's a strong engagement, a commitment from Foodles. At Foodles, we like to measure our impact. We use carbon balance. It's a scope 1, 2, and 3. We have 3 big working streams. It's the ingredients, one, plus 60% of our carbon globally. Then the logistic and packaging. The commitment, since Foodles has been created, our co-founders are very much committed in CSR subjects. It's not new to them. We become a company as a mission, and this status obliges us to put our mission in our status, and it has been checked every year by an independent institute. We cannot take any decision that goes against this mission. The 4 objectives in our status are defend healthy food, purchasing, reduce waste, and be committed for sustainable food and environmental and sustaining NGOs. We are a young company. We were created 2014. However, we always try to follow our commitments, and even if we wanted so, we cannot because it is written in our statutes. Then we committed ourselves since August in the certification B Corp. We're very proud of it. It is a very wide certification. It's 5 pillars. It is around race, reinsertion, handicap. Therefore, we're very proud to belong to this, to have this certification. As an example, to show you that growth is not a break to sustainable development. If we take, for instance, the waste, food waste, it is in our interest to reduce this in order to reduce our impact on the environment, but it has a cost also. So it's very important also from a financial standpoint and in order to reduce CO2. We have the same scheme regarding transportation. We try to optimize our fleet in order to reduce emissions, and because we don't want to have trucks traveling empty because it's very expensive. That's the commitment. Could you give us more example? How do you try to reduce this environmental impact by keeping a viable economic model? We are in growth, you are in growth. Geographically, how do you measure, how do you achieve the equilibrium between the mission, the certification, B Corp, the different commitment in order to reduce your impact regarding ingredients, and a sustainable economic model? We are very proud, and we are working on a new model, which is the connected fridge, and the collective kitchen is rather conventional. And as we are very committed, we are different, and therefore we are different from others. We try all to improve in a CSR, and we have therefore a genuine economic model. This is very differentiating. We'll certainly discuss about the impact and the commitment of foods. The food outside the home is an important subject, 30% of the food expenses. And now let's look at the way we shop. Let's go to Auchan in the distribution of food. Bénétrice de Javary, this is part of your daily works. How can Auchan in France, even if Auchan works internationally, how do you measure these impacts on the food system and probably the relationship with the producers? It's in order to help them to reduce their environmental footprint. Good evening. Let me come back to the subject of the food sovereignty, because at the Échelle scale it is securing the supply in order to make sure and secure 4 million of customers every year who come to our 650 shops. So it's huge. So we are in a very tight link with all our partners. We know them. We have to know them. We have to know how the value is distributed, to understand their problems, to be there when they need to be supported, or whether there are any climate problems. So we are already in this cooperation mode, especially with the agriculture world, because since 30 years we have partnerships with a lot of producers and cattle raisers, and we have clear and strong specifications, and we were able to develop an internal label which is called Good Culture. Therefore, we decided to decarbonize. If the objective of reduction of CO2 for Auchan have been validated by this SBTi recently, it leads us to have minus 25% on Scope 3, and this is 84% of our footprint. So our products are essentially the majority of our CO2 balance, and the food is 65%. That means that our logic is to work on decarbonization objectives by identifying together the levers to decarbonize the agriculture practices that are the most virtuous to measure in a very precise way the impact of all our products in the agricultural field. We are already in this cooperation mode, and we are getting into a measurement because for our partners from the agriculture and for our suppliers from the industry, we are consolidating the carbon impact on all our projects. And we're looking particularly at the priority markets like the animal food items, pet foods, where there are a lot of animal sourcing, cream, milk products, dairy. We are working together in order to be able to reduce our CO2 emission and attain the objectives and to reduce our emissions by 25% in 2030.
Well, how do you see that in your relationship with farmers? Just to show the strengths you have. I'm speaking about Auchan or any other brand. Actually, you have achieved a lot of things with those farmers. Well, actually, apart from the contracts that integrate all actors in the value chain, we also included those transforming food. And we have a contract for which we have involved for numerous years. We also take into account if there's an overproduction. In case we have excessive production, we can also welcome promotional products. We have a club where we meet and we share the best practices, and where we share all the aspects of carbon, of biodiversity, the animal well-being. It's a continuous dialogue and an ongoing dialogue with our partners through all those meetings. And we have employees of Auchan that become always more and more professional, and we don't always only speak about volumes, promotions, and prices, but we go very much more in depth. And this is something we started quite a long years ago. Well, you insisted on the idea of securing the revenues of farmers, and maybe we'll be able to speak about that. And here with Crédit Agricole North of France and Thierry LEBRUN, the Crédit Agricole is very much present in the agricultural world. But this gives you a number of levers that are very important. And how do you support those producers and farmers? How does Crédit Agricole support the agro-transforming field? And we have some major actors in the north of France, for example, Bonduelle. And Bonduelle is engaged in a process of decarbonization. Well, yes, for the Caisse Régionale of Crédit Agricole, we have 7 farmers out of 10 in the territory of the north of France. and actually we are at their service, and we also provide insurances for them, and we help to manage all the risks, their climate risks. And the farmer actually is an entrepreneur who is selling on world markets or to others, partners like Auchan or Foodles maybe. And the farmers tell us that, of course, they want to make the transition. Their model, actually, up to now, they've been asked to produce and produced. But we've also noticed that in the last 10 years, we have a yield increasing year by year, thanks to technical progress. But yield actually is stagnating at the moment and sometimes starting decreasing. And this is due to biodiversity of soil, and soils are becoming less productive. And we also have some climate issues. And this is true for cooperatives, but also for industrials. So they need to make the right choices. But how to be consistent with all this? Because if on the one side you have different method, on the other side you have different specifications. If you are an entrepreneur that is exploiting some soil, and this becomes something which is very difficult to solve. And what we see is that we have many labels, the organic agriculture, then we have regenerating agriculture. There's also some cattle, not only agriculture. And what we try to do first is to share clear vision of what they need to improve. But we also try to share the idea that the farmer cannot be alone when facing all those problems. For example, you have he must face agricultural and climate change, and we must not leave him alone. And if we deep dug into that, as for climate, we can find some levers for improvement. For example, decarbonation of agriculture and food. And if you have better practices in agriculture, this limits CO2 emissions. And in the French strategy, where we need to decrease emissions, we need to find other levers in the filière and
in other sectors of activity.
And we need to look in other sectors of activity in order to have a further increase of 10-15%. And
food industry.
And if you want to decrease by 46%, if we work on food diets, we have a lever of 30 to 60%. So we need to work on the fields of activity on food and on and carbon is central to that, but actually it will onboard everything, and the economy will become more and more local and more circular. And this will lead to something which will be quite satisfactory. But as a banker, we are a service company and we work with all the professionals, the companies, the farmers, and we are not just giving a service, giving a financial service, but we try to facilitate dialogue, we create link, and in a way, we favor dialogue and partnerships in order to go from the fork to the from the field to the fork, and we will not be able to imagine that we will be able to go on as before, thanks to artificial intelligence or improved technology. If we want to live together on the planet in France with an open economy, we need to make efforts to go towards flexitarianism. So this is not slang, but so it's not becoming vegetarian or vegan. It's just eat 5 times less meat.
No, 5%.
But
5% less.
5 fois moins. And the fields of activity are extremely performant, and we import many animal products from outside Europe and from other countries in Europe. And coming back to the Green Pact in Europe, since 2005, since the protocol, the Tokyo Protocol, we decreased by 48% the emissions in Europe. But in the world, globally, it increased by 18%. And actually, things doesn't work this way. And the European Commission will implement a carbon tax by 2034. And this is something new, and actually it will stop ecological dumping, because you cannot ask to our French farmers to make a transition, and the transition that has a cost, and sometimes some negative cost, for example, with photovoltaic. But you can't ask to our consumers to pay more if the actors of different fields of activity are importing products and food products that are included in and it's something which is very confused at the moment, and we need to work on the territory and at the level of France, for France, farms for France and for Europe. And Sébastien, I think, will have something to add. So Thierry set up a very precise framework, and we'll work about that another 20-25 minutes. And I think you will all have something to say when speaking about transforming the way we import. And as in the World Forum, we're not just talking about France. The idea is to speak about all over the world. You've seen the example of the jasmine tea, and for lunch you tried chocolate, while cocoa didn't is not produced in France. So part of our food comes from far away. So Sébastien, if you could tell something more about the stakes of these sectors of activity. Yesterday we were talking about the decent revenues, and if we speak about coffee or cocoa, and actually these cultures do not produce a revenue for the producers, because actually we have food which is comes from all over the world. Many things have been said, and I mainly agree on that. But if we look at our contradictions, frankly, Thierry was quite polite, and I won't be so polite. Well, either we are coherent and talking from the economical point of view, and I know what it means to say that food inflation is good news. There is a difficulty from a financial, cultural point of view. But anyway, I insist on that. If we want to find a balance, and if we want to achieve transition, it's useless to say you want the transition and you don't change your own practices. It can start in your own dish, but it's not just food that you need to change. You need to change globally. The other aspect is that eating is something which is human. Maybe you can have a, some kind of people checking what you eat through checking of data, and then everyone should have some accountancy of carbon, and maybe we could get in a system between social control, about just like they do in between Switzerland and China. And I think we need to go to these extremes, and we also need to fight for individual freedom. And we have more people free for what they eat than free when they vote. And sometimes we listen to some people, they say that in the East it's much better, but if you if in Russia, if you put just a panel saying that you need to stop war, you go to prison. In our countries, we have some kind of virtuous system, and what we need to do now is to find the capacity to unite in order to change. Because if you don't act collectively, you won't be able to change anything. And as far as food is concerned, sometimes by consuming products that come from very far away, you help farmers from far away. But what you need to know is that there is some sharing of the added value. Did you check if there were young people or children working? And the people who produce, they have a decent revenue. For example, cocoa. And today the price of cocoa is extremely high. So, and in the next few months, you will pay chocolate, and you will pay them at a higher price. And Here in France, you can consume chocolate on a daily policy. This is just quite madness because for cocoa, we link this with fighting for deforestation, and sometimes we neglect human development because we have norms and rules on the way we import, because if it's cutting or revenue to farmers on the other part of the planet, I'm not sure we're playing collective. Another example, is, for example, products. They have a higher price in France than in other parts of the world, and we have some taxes. There's a French system of sharing, and for example, the liter of milk is costing €1 to the producer. Well, try and go and try yourself to produce 1 liter of milk. So maybe you'll come back and say that the real price should be €20. So you won't have just to finance, but you'll have to start working. This means that you'll have to go on hard work, consume less or consume in another way, because you will have to make some changes that might appear brutal. And in the future, if you want to be consistent to the real transitions that will need to be implemented, then in the following years, things will be better, because we will be more performant, because we will have to be even more responsible of what we do. But what the COVID have been has accelerated is that we will have to start working harder. You don't have the right to leave alone those that work from morning till night, or you must not leave aside those that ask children to work so that you're able to have your chocolate in for Christmas. So ecology, yes, and circular economy, I say yes. And I think that the agricultural world is quite in advance compared to us. So sometimes we need to make choice in our way of life, but please be consistent, be coherent, and the future transitions will not be transitions where you will have a decrease, but it will just be a decrease of the CO2 emissions. But at the same time, we will need to recover, to restore agriculture. You cannot think about sovereignty just by being selfish and neglecting others. So sovereignty must be for all, and including all. There is no alternative planet, and neither for human safety. And in the next few years, we will have territories in the world where, if we have climate issues or wars, you will have to you will sound very unjust. What I keep in mind, there's one thing I keep in mind from what you said, and it's what is in link with commerce and exchanges. The rules for commerce actually put different types of agriculture in competition, which is not really what should be happening. And you were saying that there was some kind of deregulation for those that would not fight against deforestation. And therefore, in Europe, we wouldn't import products that would have participated to deforestation. For example, leather or cocoa. And but that subject are in link with the decent living wage. Sébastien stressed on different levels, technical, political, geopolitical, financial. And Béatrice Javary, I'd like you, from the point of view of Auchan, you could share what are the different levers we can activate and the limits you see in these transformation trajectories. Avoid speaking about climate, but also try speaking about health. Well, you've all seen that the task is quite difficult for Auchan. We are a food distributor, and we also have non-food products. And the stake is providing and importing those products, not only from France, but from far away. So we need to tackle all the subjects on a daily basis. Buyers, quality engineers,
Retailers.
and traders, and when they need to face customers, and because they need to support the changes in choices and in decarbonization. And this is all very complex, but we all need to, on the one side, have a limited budget, and we need to go to get till the end of the month, and their expenses are increasing very much with inflation and also with the increase of prices, for example, of fuel, of food, and other things. And this is all very complex, but we have some levers of mobilization, and we try to mobilize with our employees. We might have some kind of responsibility like a human resources, and we also have levers in order to inform and help our clients, because we have biodiversity stakes, and we want to fight against new diseases like type 2 diabetes or obesity. So clients are asking for help in order to help them to make better choices. And we have a very strong communication in media. We have our employees supporting and helping our customers when they do their shopping. And we also have labels, but we know that labels have a limit. But we even go beyond labels with criteria, taking into account, for example, seasonality or diet balance, and diet balance not only for one meal but on a complete day. And we have a lever towards our employees and our customers, and this shows that each person in its daily life, he or she will be able to make this transition. And in the companies, we have moments where we listen to experts talking about what's happening on the other side of the world, and we listen to them about the value chain, the farmers, the transporters, our other partners, in order to improve the distribution channels. And here we also have some packaging activity. We spoke about climate, but we would also speak about pollution, about waste management. So the field of transformation is so big, so huge, is that we're all involved in it. As a distributor, we generally show us as the, being the worst or the bad pupil in the class, but we need to face customers that sometimes don't have enough money and that sometimes might be shy or feel guilty. And we would like our consumers to go on eating and choosing and buying what they want. So you need to find the right balance between a support, an advice, and I generally tell the store managers that they maybe they should help people choose vegetable alternatives, and sometimes making the effort of tasting an alternative, or maybe giving some ideas about the carbon impact. So there are many things that can be done, and Auchan has a huge responsibility towards the consumer.
And always also in linking up with the industrial sector, with the agriculture, the farmers. So I am in agreement. There is a whole chain of responsibility, and we all concerned from the consumer up to the producer. This is very true. It is a collective approach. We need to take on our responsibility and individually in daily life. And it is, I think, something everybody understands and becomes aware. Thank you very much, Beatrice. There are two things I would like to keep from what you say. I would like to be provocative. You spoke a lot about incentives, soft laws, positive things, and the role of the legislation. So it's a hard law side, and we certainly should speak about it. It's not only incentive. There is a reputation, and there's public law, public legislation, even if we don't want to have a complete social control. Then there is the awareness raising, the education of the customers, the education of the people who live, who eat. We organized a program on cafe and cacao and banana with the foundation with with, with the blue-yellow logo, and they put the fair trade banana logo, but the people did not buy its fair trade. Therefore, it's more expensive, and therefore it was counterproductive. So we don't think that people react differently. Juliette and Fudels, let me go back to you. When we prepared this panel, you told me that there is this envy, this need to participate in the awareness raising in order to have something like a food citizenship or citizen behavior. At Foodos, you have a role like collective kitchen in general, the canteens, or eating at home. How do you go about and how do you raise awareness of the customer, the end customer? How you transfer your efforts in terms of sustainable sourcing, which is a cost issue, and the cost of food. And then we are going to speak about waste. But the first question is around awareness. At Foodos, we are in B2B2C. We are very near to our end customer through the fridges or the application. So I am in agreement with you, Beatrice, when you said we need to raise awareness rather than to let people feel guilty. We realized when we made our carbon that the packaging was only 3% of the impact, but the customers only speak about packaging. They're not asking themselves what is in the packaging. So we would like to re-center and change the debate. The ingredients are the problem sometimes. We have the same problem as Auchan around the jangle of the labels. We try not to stick any to our plates. We are thinking about posters in order to check our recipes and analyze the ones that are worse. I don't think that it's black and white between meat or not meat. And within a recipe, if you take a bologna lasagna, you could have half beef, half vegetables, and raise awareness of your customers. I think there are two key words: sensibilization, awareness raising, and transparency. The consumer needs to be in trust. You cannot impose a label and say that it's good or not good and just speak about guilt. As Sébastien said, we have all our liberty and freedom, and this is very important to keep. Around sourcing, we don't want to relay all the responsibility on the shoulders of the end consumer. We are responsible, we are aware of that, and therefore we are reflecting and thinking around regenerative agriculture with new practices, and we are working with some stakeholders that are innovative. Like Atypic, they are selling declassified fruits and vegetables. So we try to integrate them and to speak with our customers about it. We think it's important to do it and to speak about it so that afterwards, they when they do their shopping, they look at those ingredients and speak about it around them. Juliette, I have a question around the waste. A third of the food is wasted or lost, because of infrastructure problems or transformation problems. Some countries, as we have is at the production stage or after the harvest, because the silos are not adapted or there are insects and so on. In Europe, it's rather at the consumption stage that we waste. Beatrice probably has a couple of things to say. In France, it's rather fruits and vegetables lost, and it's a very important, huge impact. If I understand well, everybody chooses something in the fridge. There's a risk of waste. Just a couple of figures. ADEM tells us the waste is around 17%. At food halls with the fridge, we go down to 12%, so a 30% decrease. It doesn't seem to be a lot, but it's a lot. 1 out of 10 plates are lost. So we try to really look at the life cycle of a plate. We try not to fill the fridges too much. We have an algorithm helping us to fill the connected fridges. If a client, for instance, authorizes home offices on Friday, we will less supply on Fridays, or we try to get adapted to the way people eat. We have people that are full vegetarian and others who don't want to have 40% vegetarian. So we try to be adapted and have less losses. Then once it is in the fridge, the goal is that when the supplier comes, the fridge is empty the next day. So we have daily promotions, like from 5 p.m. onwards, it is less 30%, so that the people can go back home with a cheap plate and share it with his family, for instance. And on Fridays, it's 50% after 5 p.m. because otherwise it's weekend. So the fridge needs to be empty at the end of the day. Then we have some plates that are not sold. We try to give them to associations if possible. We work a lot with the Chez nous manquons and the Secours Populaire. And nowadays, they don't have a lot of means, very few funds. So we try to help them. And then there are some plates we cannot give and we cannot sell, and therefore we revalorize them. So it's methanization for biogas production. But really need to think about waste reduction at every step of the chain. Thank you, Juliette. Let me make a joke. So wait 5 o'clock to have lunch in order to enjoy the promotions from food halls. Before I ask if you have questions, I would like to end this discussion round with Thierry LEBRUN. We discussed around the levers, and I would like to know what you think about funding. A bank like the Crédit Agricole is a stakeholder. This is working at different levels, but the objective is to fund the transition. It is a subject we find very important at our foundation because we're going to have a conference on it. How do you accompany your clients? What are the financial innovations within the Crédit Agricole? We created since 2 years a specific help for farmers. It's the transition loans. Then we created offers to promote short circuits, especially around communication. When producers sell at their farm, we launched a platform called J'aime mon territoire, I love my area, where we link up farmers who produce with their direct clients. It works more or less. We're one among many actors. And this is when it comes to the bilateral relation with the farmers. Then apart from that, we are creating an ecosystem of offers because it's very complex. It takes some time. Some offers we work since more than 5 years, and we are going to publish them now because it's very complicated. It's very complex. Transition is complex with 360 degrees universe, so it's not that easy. From next year onwards, we will offer a tool for making a diagnosis for the farmer who will be able to use it with his advisor to simulate the career of the farmers according to the transition he will make. There will be a questionnaire with CSR questionnaire for farming, and he will be able to ask himself the right questions. We are working on a platform that is a low carbon credit launched by the Ministry for Agriculture and Ecological Transition, and it enables to receive funding, systemic funding, when around carbon. For instance, on the basis of a K2R, they will be able to launch these diagnoses, and the farmers will be able to begin to change the practices in order to reduce the carbon emissions. And through 2 audits at midterm and after 5 years, the agriculture can receive a remuneration which we called a loan, but it's not really a carbon loan, but it's a kind of a salary. And it's around 4,000 farmers today who belong to that. It's very few, it's just in the starting. And we want to amplify and massify this system. And as of today, farmers can, in an average, get 20,000 euros after 5 years. As a carbon loan, this is not enough because it's a bilateral relation. So if we want to massify, we need to work a tripartite or the multipartite coalition of stakeholders. We try to innovate with a multinational from Canada, McCain. They are present in the potato. They are actually worldwide leader in the potato fields, and we created a partnership with McCain and the producers. It's a tripartite contract in order to accompany 800 farmers with a zero loan in order to finance their commitment and the equipment costs in order to begin the new regeneration practices. Aside, McCain is bringing in some free technical support and a bonus per ton, agroecological bonus. Therefore, the farmer in a tripartite contract receives very strong incentives. And at the end, what we need to understand, it's not your first step. A life cycle of a potato is every 6 years on a plot. What happens between those 6 years for McCain? We don't know. So who guarantees McCain that this path is going to stay for the 5 years before the potato comes back on the same plot? What is the guarantee? So we are thinking, and we understand that it is very important to have a coalition in order to make sure that the farmer who will receive a lot of bonuses from different clients and customers and stakeholders, he will decide that there's no other alternative than transition. And for the industrial side, food industrials and need to share the transition cost, because if McCain is the only one to pay, it's very costly. But if it is shared with Bonduelle, with Auchan, with whoever, everybody pays a little bit. And then this leads me to the framework question, the economic framework. It is a political framework. We know the pact, it has not a lot of influence on transition. We see that the government who sets the low carbon for the agriculture from the states, but that it's not enough. We need to order, we need to rearrange things. We need a political framework, but we cannot ask politicians to take a political risk if, and this is something we've seen with the different riots we had. We need to understand each other and understand what is transition, how does it look like. So we set up a PhD to understand this. We're working with different institutes, interprofessional, with association, of different types who accompany and monitor farmers in order to understand. And once we understand, we will set a basis, a common basis of definition with data, with indicators and key indicators we will be able to share. Because if we want to work jointly with the different stakeholders, we need to be in agreement, understand, and steer. We cannot remunerate with wrong things. So we are measuring. It's very complex, and I think with a goodwill and by understanding the challenges, it'll be okay because we are all working in our business model. We are all managing risk, and the climate risk become the major risk we need to mitigate. And all these works will help us to manage the risk, transition risk, environmental risk, and we need to help our customers to understand the risk, and then we will be funding and give some insurance. We really are adamant that our customers' risk. There's another risk. We need to make sure that the room here can raise questions. Do you have questions to our 4 panelists? Food subjects are usually very interesting. Are you raising your hand? No, you're not. Here? Is there a mic somewhere? I have a question here. And we will take all the questions first, and then you'll be able to answer. I have a question from Mrs. Thierry from Auchan, whom I know because I worked for Auchan for a couple of years, especially in purchasing. We all know that to eat in a healthy way and eating and making sure the organic field, it makes sense. However, organic suffers. Nobody can purchase organic, and farmers are stopping and go back to conventional. I have a remark. Why is there not more organic and put forward? And I am a former purchaser. I know the purchasing system, and I know how the purchasing part needs to be trained in order to participate and to have the knowledge of those choices and selection in the decision-making process. Very simple. Why in the organic field cannot calculate in value rather than percentage? It's because organic is more expensive. Why don't we try to have less margin on the organic field? Because if we take 20% margin, it's more in euros than when on the conventional side. So for the distributor, it's more interesting to sink a little bit the margin on the organic in order it to be more interesting for the customer, and therefore the people with less means will be able to buy it. Let's take the other question here, the rear, please. Are there any other questions? Thank you for this information. This panel is a very complex subject, social, climatic, and so on. And it's not easy to speak about it. My question is around Europe. I cannot understand when will we change the rules at European level. We know that Europe is a key player, and all the producers like Mercosur and Euro are not the same rules. Then we need to change the habits, the behavior of the customers in Europe. We know that the system has been founded in the 50s and 60s at a time where Europe needed to produce mass production. So we had to change all the rules, and now it's not the same time anymore. The PAC program from the European Union, is it still actual? A lot of farmers cannot. It's not profitable without the PAC, and they produce quantities that are not logical. Thinking of maize, corn, 80% for feeding cattle. We know we don't have enough water. It's just an example among others. We don't need to change the global rules before trying to change things at the consumption level and so on. Thank you. It's the coherence around trade approaches. Then another question from gentleman over there. Here in front. A quick intervention. Yeah, I have a question around the distribution. Is the regulation around packaging and the over-packaging of organic food is still, it seems very illogical for me why a cucumber should be packaged. Can we differentiate the organic food differently? Why do we need to use packaging? And here is the last question. Very short question. We realized that the earth and the way we cultivate the earth produce a lot of carbon, capture a lot of carbon. Is there a thinking, reflection process around this issue? We could become a demonstration of this new way of cultivating earth by capturing carbon rather than releasing carbon. I think this is interesting. We could speak about regenerative agriculture. Beatrice, there are a lot of questions to you, and then you will all have a minute to give your inputs around the PAC and the carbon issue. Around the subject of the organic food and the purchasing profession. Purchasing will have to be transformed the most in future because our purchasers were always incentivized around the price and the margin, and tomorrow we'll ask them to have a logic of carbon accountancy. This is new. We worked on a program of decarbonization of Scope 3 with a monitoring program of our suppliers, and we wanted the purchaser to be responsible, accountable. We needed a whole day to understand and to help the purchasers to understand they have other habits. It's difficult to change. We developed specific training for purchasers so that the purchaser integrates his new responsibility. He's the only one who can do it. It applies to the price and also the margin. So we have to tell ourselves as our professions are going to change. We're working with HR on this subject so that is integrated in the job descriptions and in the variable remunerations, other dimensions than the one we had before that were purely economic. But in order to do so, we have to be able to set the measures in order to verify that the objectives are achieved. So we have to have an accountant, carbon accounting per product in order to be able to monitor these issues. It's a path. It's very complex. We need to work a lot, but it's the only path. We know that. So therefore, tomorrow we'll have to recruit purchasers who have not at all the same way of purchasing as we did in the past. Today, it's a real transition, and it's going to have an impact on the finance sector, and the euro accounting and the carbon accounting will be leading the destiny of the companies tomorrow. And all the stakeholders today who only work in euros will have to work with other challenges than euros. With regard to their objectives, their variables, and the performance of the company. And the CSRD will help us there, because it is going to be part of the different indicators, and this transformation is already moving. It's a big revolution, but we are moving. The different professions change, the logic changes, the companies are transforming themselves. This is going into the right direction globally because there is some awareness. Otherwise, we will go lost. This is the subject of the organic. We will not discuss it today. It's very complex. It's today there were some headlines in the newspapers. Organic is a way to practice agriculture, but there are others. There are conservation agriculture, regeneration agriculture. It's one subject among others. However, the right answer is that the trade of the professional persons have to integrate all this. You have 30 seconds each to conclude, and we will be able to discuss the packaging for cucumbers during the break. Juliette, just a couple of inputs for the conclusion around coherence, and Thierry and Sébastien afterwards. At Foodles, we are cookers with regard to organic. It's EGalim. We have to tend to 30% organic. And for the regeneration agriculture, the carbon contribution, me as a stakeholder who is buying food, we need to finance transition, and we participate in Rhône-Alpes around the carbon contribution. I think that's a good lever. Thank you, Juliette. Thierry, what do you say? One word. With regard to the carbon captation, absolutely. The farmers are working on the subject, and then there is a question of acceptability, because the conversion of maize corn to pasture, there are a lot of techniques, and it has been well studied, and this is going to be promoted. We're not there yet, but it's pretty clear. And it's going in the right direction. The question regarding when will the Commission move? I think the world is changing radically, as Beatrice says, from the 1st of January 2024, because in 2025, all the companies of more than 250 salaries, 40 million turnover, will have to publish a reporting around durability. It's not a constraint, it's not mandatory, because the first intention of the Commission is that everybody understand what ecologizing mean. We need to, as long as you don't have to do, nobody will understand it. Only a couple of experts in each group that you put in a corner, nobody understands what is at stake. If you have to publish an extra financial report, it will engage the whole financial teams, surveillance board. We are at the beginning of a revolution that will enable us to meet the Green Deal in Europe. And I think that everybody who is interested needs to read the Green Deal in order to understand what we're heading at. And as it was said yesterday in plenary session, we are living an acceleration, exponential acceleration. Now we don't see it really still, but it is growing. It is growing very tightly. In the Crédit Agricole bank, nobody spoke about it 3 years ago, and today it is the subject, and it is at the heart of the strategy of all regional banks. we are going to publish another report in December. Thank you very much. We're already pretty late. Sébastien, you only have 30 seconds. We don't have we don't have to solve the pact from the European Commission. It needs to be more, and it needs to be an agriculture policy. If you want to have food and food sovereignty, we need farmers. And today's agriculture in France and Europe has nothing to see. It has nothing to do with what it was 20 or 10 years ago. The agricultural world is just at the same level as others. It is transforming a lot. There is no specificity of the status quo of agriculture. It's not moving. As a conclusion, we need to be careful what we eat with regard to the climate, but let's never forget that food is fun. If you don't have fun when you food, otherwise it might be good for your health, but then it's not good for your health. That's what the Institut Pasteur said. You need to enjoy food. You need to be enthusiastic when you go to eat, and don't eat alone. It is bad for the quality of what you eat. You eat smiling and eat together good product from here and somewhere else. We're back at the emotions. Thank you for the interpreters. Bye.